Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 7. So we are of course around the time of the year where The Flash would normally be returning to our screens with their newest and freshest and latest season. Now we will of course be waiting until some point in January for that to actually happen. Where in January that is would still be up in the air, but it wouldn't surprise me if we get a January premiere earlier than we would normally get for January premieres. Anyway. Filming is set to start shortly after another short delay due to backlogs and testing, so not long until we start to get some material in regards to promotional stuff, posters and just trailers and all of that. But we would be waiting until probably November, maybe even December for that. Now, Season 7 is actually a very big season for a couple of reasons. Of course, it will have to deal with the end of what Season 6 was meant to, be or do after that season was cut short to COVID. So the season itself will feel different compared to previous seasons just due to the difference in structure, I guess you could call it, that will be coming. But Season 7 is also the last season from current contracts on the show. Now, we will come back to that as a whole later in the video, but there is one character in general that people have been wondering about, especially since another edition in Season 6, which leads into Season 7, and that is the status of Cisco Ramon on the show. Is he being replaced and, slowly pushed out the door? As I'm sure most of you would know by now, Chester P. Runk, who was introduced back in the first episode of Season 6, and then appeared in a few more episodes later in the season, was upgraded to a series regular for Season 7. Now, it does seem that he was going to be in most, if not all, of the remaining episodes of what Season 6 would have been before COVID, rock-bottomed the season. So that could have been setting up where Season 7 would have taken that character, as well as maybe some others. Now, his upgraded or increased role heading into Season 7 has had people wondering, well, what does this mean for Cisco? These characters are pretty, if not very, similar. Is Chester going to be replacing Cisco? Now, you might be thinking to yourself, hold on, Paige, you freaking idiot. This sounds all too similar to Season 5 and all those rumors about Carlos Valdez, who plays Cisco, was leaving the show. And yeah, I agree with you, it does. But it is important to remember that back then, during Season 5, there were contract renewals taking place with a lot of the cast. Not all of them. Like Grant was, from the beginning from Season 1, was through to Season 7, if they got to a Season 7. But for a lot of them, they didn't have that extended length contract, if that makes sense. And Carlos, heading later into that season, from what was known by people in the know, had not signed onto, future seasons past Season 5. With himself not even confirming what was going on with him. There was actually a big chance that he was going to leave, and if you look back at the storyline for Cisco, his character in Season 5, it seemed that they were setting him up to leave if he didn't, sign the contract. Like, if you look at the end of Season 5, the ending for Cisco is really up in the air. Like, if he didn't come back, you'd be like, okay, they gave him an ending. But if he did come back, you'd be like, okay, fair enough. Now, the show, The Flash TV show, which will most likely be renewed for a couple more seasons, probably another 2 up to Season 9, does need someone like Cisco. I would prefer Cisco, as he is a character that we know and love on the show. Had him since, had him since Season 1. Who doesn't like Cisco? But the show at the base of it all just needs a character like Cisco, that does stuff like Cisco to allow certain things to happen and move along in certain areas. So it makes sense that a character like Chester, who was a personal favorite of the showrunner Eric Wallace from the comics, would be brought in to fill that area in the future after a potential departure from, Cisco. Now this is brought up, which then leads into another question, which, a lot of people have been wondering to themselves. I don't think anyone's answering it in a positive way, but the question is, can you have both of these characters on the show? And I think the answer is actually yes, but can you have both as series regulars, so people that are constantly on the show in a consistent way? I would say that would be the hard part. Like, I don't know how you have them both there in the same room, or they'd maybe go out of their way to try and keep them separate. It would be a big task, might I say, to have both of these characters as regulars for, a decent amount, multiple seasons. But the exit route for Carlos Valdez from the role of Cisco, in a major way at least, so it could come back, as a guest star, but at least in regards to being a series regular, could be the end of these contracts at the end of Season 7. Now, with these contracts, or those contracts, the only actor on the show who would be a definite to sign on for future seasons, well, it's pretty obvious, is the star of the show himself, of course that being Grant Gustin. So what about others on the show? Now, usually as a show goes on, people leave, and newer actors and characters are brought in to fill out and flesh out the cast. Sometimes the main actor leaves, but the thing is it's usually a spread out cast enough to the point where you can keep the show going. So for example, like I know I'm using some of you might watch the show, some of you might not, but Riverdale, they could lose the guy that plays Archie, I forgot his name for a second, Archie, and the show could keep going because the rest of the group, ensemble cast that leads it would be able to keep the show going on. But The Flash, you can't lose Barry, unless they did the Wally storyline, but that ship has sailed. But yeah, as the show goes on, you might get other side characters leave the show, and other new actors and characters will be brought in to fill in and flesh out that cast. You need other characters to fill out screen time so people aren't being overworked. Grant Gustin can't be on every single second of a 45-minute episode every single week. It's impossible. He can only actually do about half of that, especially on network TV. So it wouldn't be a surprise at all that once the show gets a potential 8th and or 9th season, that you see a few characters exit the show, or at least lessen their roles, most likely exit, but sometimes lessen their roles, and there are other additions to fill out the cast, so they get other characters from the comics to come in. And you could argue that the addition of Chester as well as Allegra, in Season 6 leading into them being series regulars in Season 7, is the show jumping out, ahead of that scenario and, casting early. And, getting us used to a character in a small way in a previous season and then making them that main, more important role in the following season. But who else on the show would be likely to leave come the end of Season 7? Now, this is all just guesswork by me, just me chucking out some options. I'm not saying that this is anything that has been spread through the grapevine, like the Cisco scenario or anything like that from a couple of years ago. However, I would like to hear your opinions on who you think could leave and why. Whether it be, because their character, so their character, might I say, ends on like a good note this season, or whether you just think their time is up as a character and just on the show. Let me know. And just to stress once again, I don't want these people to leave, but they are people I could see leaving come the end of Season 7. So my first option, and this might come as a shock to some, maybe to some it won't, because you might be thinking the same thing, but it's actually Tom Cavanagh, who of course plays all the various versions of Wells. Now, if Tom was to leave, I don't actually think it would be the last time we would see him on the show as an actor. I think he would return for little guest appearances here and there, whether it's as Reverse Flash or something or someone else. But I struggle to see how they could keep the Harrison Wells thing going without the multiverse. That's an important thing, without the multiverse. Now, it's obvious that this upcoming Season 7 could have Barry as well as the team tapping back and rediscovering the multiverse, or just tapping into this new multiverse that is out there that we found at the end of Crisis, and in turn opening the door for another Wells or two to show up over the next couple of seasons. But at this very moment, that isn't a thing, and we don't know if it will be a thing. Nash Wells could easily get to the end of Season 7 as a character. Whether it's good or not is another question, but I don't see how it goes past that, this season if it is just Nash again. I don't think he can keep using that character. But then again, there is that story where all the Wells are in his head, so that could lead somewhere interesting where it's easy, for the character to extend past Season 7, and it's a good choice of Tom Cavanagh to stay full time. We'll have to wait and see in regards to that. And I really only have one other option to offer up, and that's actually Jesse L. Martin, who of course plays Joe West, and it pains me to say it. Now, I think if I was doing this video like a month or two ago, I'd probably, wouldn't have chucked or thrown Jesse L. Martin's name into the potential actors that could leave. But after certain things that were revealed in regards to storylines for Season 7, I'm thinking that they could or just might be setting up an exit for the character of Joe West on the show as a regular, at least, a regular, series regular. He could come back in a guest appearance here and there. So I'm sure most of you would know Joe is going to be getting a story arc in Season 7 in relation to abuse of power in the CCPD, or the Central City Police Department. This most likely to do with metahumans and probably someone taking advantage of them in like a nefarious way. Now, whatever the story entails, who knows what it is, we'll have to wait and see. It could be seen as a way for Joe to come to the conclusion that his time on the police force is done and he retires. The show has struggled to keep the CCPD relevant consistently over the most recent seasons, and I don't think it would be the biggest loss to the show if they were to cut that part of the show off. Like, they never went full in on Barry being a forensic investigator, or forensic scientist, so, if you're never going to go full in, what's the point of constantly, bringing it back up? You know what I mean? It just seems like we just go there every now and then just to waste time. What we could then see is Joe retire and maybe move away from Central City. Maybe not too far, but just out of Central City, maybe away from danger. Now, I'm sure some of you remember from a couple of seasons, I think it was Season 5, that this whole thing with Joe retiring was a possible solution to Joe's character in case Jesse L. Martin would have been unable to return to the show after that back injury and back surgery that he had. So they could use this as a way to end Joe's run as a regular on the show. This in turn would most likely have Cecile leaving the show as well, most likely. Unless they had it that she still drove to Central City for work or something like that. It'd be random, but it could still work. But I guess if Joe leaves, Cecile leaves as well, I guess. Yeah, it pains me to say that, that Joe could potentially leave, but it wouldn't surprise me, to be completely honest, especially, as I said, when these contracts run up. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Bit depressing, to be completely honest, but if you enjoyed the video in some way, shape or form, it would be awesome if you could drop a like and it shows support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on what we went over, and if you have any suggestions as to people you could see leaving the show come the end of season 7 because of the contract stuff, let me know all of that, your opinions down there in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.